Hello class, welcome to our second lesson in section 5.1. We're again looking at rates and ratios today. First thing that we want to talk about is a review of something we talked about yesterday that was in your homework as well. When you're trying to find the product of something like this, you need to be able to explain kind of what's happening here. Okay, so don't forget the goals in all of these situations is put the first piece over 1, so like this 6 hours, put it over 1. And then you cross simplify the numbers if there's any numbers to simplify and the labels. Okay, so in this case, the H's, the hours cancel, the gallons cancel, etc. And then you should have an answer of just numerator times numerator, and then don't forget the final label or the unit for each of these questions. If we just look at the first one as an example, here's what you're saying. This would be like if you work somewhere and got paid $7 an hour, and then you worked for 6 hours, how much money would you make? And remember, this is unit analysis. You'll do a lot in your classes in science. And so you just want to make sure that you're able to look at those and find those answers. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about, which was mentioned in our last lesson, is more specifically the idea of a unit rate. Now, if you Google search or look in your textbook about unit rate, typically a unit rate means that you can divide by the denominator is a 1. Okay, so all of these are the same rate. Okay, so I just took the first one, and notice I put the dollars on the top and the hours on the bottom. You have to think about which option you probably care about. Do you want hours per dollar or dollars per hour? And typically, the time element always goes on the bottom. And then you just divide this out. So 90 divided by 6 would be $15 per 1 hour. So that's how much you get paid per hour. And that would be the same for a lot of different things like miles per gallon, dollars per pound, like at the deli. Okay, those situations are all unit rates. And then we use those to find answers for other amounts of time or whatever your label is that you're looking at. Okay, this next question says to find the speed in miles per hour of the space station. Speed is typically the same as a unit rate. It's just speed is like miles per hour, miles per second, whatever it is. Now remember, you want the time on the bottom. So you don't want seconds per mile. You want miles per second. You get 14.4 over 3. You could have picked any of these relationships. So if I would have picked 57.6 divided by 12, that would have worked. But then this is 4.8 miles per second. That is the speed then. That's the same idea as the unit rate. This may not matter as much to you in its current format, but if you change it to miles per hour, I think you'll really see how fast the International Space Station is really moving and when it's orbiting the Earth. Okay, next question says there's 45 males to 60 females in a subway car. First thing is write a ratio of that, so 45 over 60. Remember when you write a ratio, you always simplify as far as you can. You could use the word 2 to compare the ratio. You could use a colon, the 2 dots, or you could use a fraction. The only reason you might have to pick one over the other is because the directions say to pick one over the other. So something to keep in mind as you're looking at those scenarios. Then it says find the speed of the subway car. Now, same thing as the last one. This is 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. So you take 2.5 divided by 5, and you get 0.5 miles per minute, or 1 mile every 2 minutes. Okay, the speed typically is a unit rate, so that's why it's 0.5 miles per 1 minute. This graph shows another subway car, and they ask you to find the speed of it. Remember, order pairs are always x, y. So x is time here, and distance is the y value. Notice when I find the unit rate, though, or speed, it's the y value divided by the x value. And that's something we're going to talk about when we get to things like slope later on in this semester. Okay, but you still want miles per minute. That's why it's the y value divided by the x. Now, I could have picked the 1/2 and 1/4. I decided to use the 3 and 1.5. So that's 1.5 miles in 3 minutes, and that also becomes 0.5 miles per minute. If I look at the speed of this subway car versus the last subway car, they're actually going the exact same speed, even though the information given to us is very different. Okay, this next question is about a recipe, and to be honest, I would definitely write this question down. If you have questions, we got to make sure this question is figured out. So please make sure you have this question written down as a reference for your notes. This says you mix 1/2 cup of red for every 1/4 cup of blue paint. Now that's the recipe. 1/2 cup red for every 1/4 cup blue. Okay, this is like a recipe. This would be similar for a recipe for any type of food that's made. Which means this recipe in total is 3/4 of a cup. 1/2 plus 1/4 is 3/4. So my recipe 1/2 cup red, 1/4 cup blue, okay, and that recipe makes 3/4 of a cup. I want to make 12 cups of purple paint. So obviously it can't be 1/2 and 1/4. Now there's 2 ways to solve this, and one is better than the other. One option is you just keep adding 1/4 and 1/2 until you get to the answer, which may take a little bit of time. Instead, what we should do is say, well, how many total do I need? So I need 12 cups total. I need to take that and divide by what the recipe takes, which is 3/4. Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out is how many batches of the recipe I want. So if you've ever done this with cookies or a dessert and you needed a bunch of them, you had to take the recipe and multiply by a certain amount. So for this case, I'm saying I need 12 cups total, divide that by 3/4 because that's how much one recipe takes. And then when I divide by a fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal, that's why it's times 4/3, and I get an answer of 16 batches of the recipe, which means my original recipe, going back up to the top, the 1/2 and 1/4 cups of red and blue need to be multiplied by 16. So 1/2 times 16 is 8, 1/4 times 16 is 4. And then in the end, I need 8 cups red and 4 cups blue. I know you can guess and check your way to find this. I know there's other options here. I want everyone to be able to go through this method. So figure out the recipe, figure out how much is in the recipe, figure out how many batches of the recipe, plug it in and multiply through. You're going to need to be able to do that in the future, say maybe on a test. So make sure that you can explain this well and have a good example written down for this scenario. Okay, when we convert units, there's lots of ways to do it. We kind of know what's going on. We can use the dimensional analysis or unit analysis idea with the cross canceling. Another option is using some ratios. So for example here, 5 feet compared to inches. So I could say 5 feet over something equals 1 foot over 12 inches. And notice this is just times 5 to get from 1 to 5, so 12 times 5 is 60. It's just giving another option. Maybe that's helpful to you as you're looking at these scenarios. 4 gallons over X cups is the same as 1 gallon over 16 cups, and 1 times 4, so 16 times 4 would be 64 cups. Remember, have your unit conversions written down somewhere, or have a sheet of it somewhere that you printed out. Your docket has a lot of those things as well. I would focus on the ones you're not as comfortable with. Okay, a lot of times it's these things like cups to gallons that cause more problem than maybe feet to inches. So just some things to think about as you move forward. Okay, so your homework today is in section 5.1. You've got 1 through 6, which remember if you're missing a definition answer, it's probably in the section, so you got to flip back a few pages, find that definition. 11 through 33 odd just have a lot of ratios that need to be simplified and rates that need to find unit rates. And then don't forget about the recipe question. Now I also added in here, I know this isn't in order, but it was the easiest way to write it, number 30. Make sure you try number 30, okay, in that scenario. Anytime you have to convert the units, make sure you show what you did. Even if it's a simple times 12, make sure you show how you found that conversion to be able to find that final answer. Have a good day, everyone.